Hello, it's Ina from Taproot Tarot. It's been a while, and I do prefer to record in natural light, and I've had a hard time finding the right window. You've probably witnessed that when I'm kind of being attacked by the sun, or I have videos where suddenly the light gets too dim. I have to turn on some overhead lights, so I haven't found the right window lately. But today I received a deck that I thought would look nice under some warm lighting, and that's the Decadent Tarot by Lalania Simone. I backed her Kickstarter for what sounds like will be her final deck. I have all of her decks and even funded her original Indiegogo for her Cosmic Tarot. I hadn't planned on getting involved with this one because I wasn't familiar with the artist and didn't feel like I probably needed it. But then I saw the art and I really like it. So I decided to go for it. And it seems fitting to fund her first and last deck. I've had somewhat of a quick succession of rewards from her. So in November, I received her Mythweaver Tarot with the Codex, and I'll post a link to my walkthrough of that. I happened to receive that and another Indigenous created deck, My Friend Fire Oracle, on Indigenous Peoples Day. So I thought it fitting to put those both into a video. There are chapters though, and the Mythweaver is the second half of the video. And I think sometime last month I got this reward from the campaign she did making pendulums. And this is so cool. It's got crushed rose petals in it, so it smells lovely. And it's an antique copper key with a nice sturdy copper chain. And a copper bead at the end. I'm not sure what kind of bead this is, but it's quite lovely. She did some copper wire work there, which is pretty nice. This is my second pendulum. I have a Labradorite one as well. And I've been getting more into using pendulums, and there's a new book coming out pretty soon that I have pre-ordered that involves tarot, runes, and pendulums, which are three of my favorite things. So I'm excited to have another pendulum to add to that practice, especially one made by somebody as talented and magically gifted as Lalania Simone. So the Decadent Tarot is named after the artist Aubrey Beardsley. He only lived to be 25, and he was an Art Nouveau artist. This box is lovely. It's kind of silky. Isn't that cool? There were two versions of this deck, a black and white one, which is in line with Aubrey Beardsley's art, and the dark botanical, which is the one I got. Comes with a little white book, and it has some history of the artist. Here's a picture of him. He was English, but moved to France, where he first became familiar with the art of Henri Toulouse-Lautrec, who was influenced by the Japanese woodcuts of the ukiyo-e period, which is so interesting to me. I have an interesting video planned about ukiyo-e art, which is oddly intertwined with tarot. But he was a satirist, which also I think relates him to tarot. He was really critical of the Victorian restraint and fear of the power of women. And so he celebrated decadence as a revelation. He created a number of really controversial artworks, illustrations for various books and plays, like a play by Oscar Wilde, which had super controversial art in it. He worked in black ink, which I don't know a whole lot about Art Nouveau, but you don't really think of it as being black and white. It's more naturalistic and, soft colors and flowers everywhere and curvy lines. And so he definitely incorporates naturalistic elements, but there's also a harshness in his black and white drawings from what I could see, just a little brief overview of him as an artist. So that made me think kind of the rebellion against Victorian ideals and a celebration of opulence and kind of the harshness of his art, even within the framework of Art Nouveau as a movement, made me think that he may have been kind of a precursor to Art Deco, which followed Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau was from, late 1800s into early 1900s, and Art Deco is from about 1920 to 1940. And Art Deco is really, shiny and angular. It's an expression of wealth and opulence. So I'd love to hear from folks who know more about those two art styles. Obviously, he passed away long before the Art Deco movement, but I suspect his art may have influenced Art Deco artists. And that made me think of this cool trinket that I have here. My house was built in 1930 or thereabouts. That's an estimate, which was during Prohibition in the United States when alcohol was banned. And I had to have my lead-painted cabinets replaced. My city has a program that will help people fix up old, dangerous features in houses, such as lead cabinets. So as they tore the old cabinets out, they found that one of them had a secret removable panel, which hid a secret compartment for hiding one's alcohol. And it contained this bottle, which was absolutely filthy. You could tell it looked like it was from an archaeological dig, even though it was just in this recess behind my cabinet. But you can see here that it has an Art Deco design on the side, which I think is pretty cool. So it's half gallon right there. So just a cool antique found in the walls of my house that I was reminded of while thinking about Aubrey Beardsley's art and whether or not he was an influence on Art Deco as well. So do you want to see the cards? Let's check these out. So as I mentioned, there's a bit of a history in the little white book, which is pretty cool. I didn't want to read all of it to you, but you can tell she really appreciates the influence that Aubrey Beardsley has. She notes that she chose each piece of art intuitively. She has a decadent cross spread in here, which I actually really like. And then she has a brief meaning for each card. She doesn't really explain why she chose the art that she chose. Again, she notes that it was an intuitive choice. But her write-ups are succinct and poetic. So you can see that there are flower petals, kind of a flower petal pattern as a background. Here's the back. The other version is black and white, as I mentioned, and this version has her signature metallic edging, in this case a nice magenta. And all of these are cleaned up and sometimes simplified versions of Aubrey Beardsley's art. So she may have taken out some elements to make the artwork simpler, but it is a copy of his art. Cool. The Magician, super intricate naturalistic details on her lectern. I saw a few pieces of his art as I was reading up a bit on him, and this is from a piece called The Peacock Dress. The High Priestess. The Empress and several others remind me quite a bit of the Carlo Tedeschi deck by Fournier. The Emperor, and here you can begin to see some of his satirical commentary coming through. It's quite the character. I'm trying to show you the botanical background. It's super pretty. So I was mentioning he did art for a number of controversial publications. Here's the Hierophant. But he also did some mainstream kind of art in magazines and advertisements and things like that. But he had the tendency to hide small obscenities in his art. So here's the Lovers. Publishers had to get into the habit of scrutinizing his submissions with a magnifying glass before publishing them. Man, he's got a flair for headpieces, doesn't he? Somewhat of a vampiric kind of lover card. The Chariot. The images have some pretty small details. Strength. Not really sure what that is she's holding. Champagne flute, maybe? Or some other kind of cup. I love this hermit. The wheel. I imagine it was difficult for her to find an example of a wheel in his art. And at first I wasn't really feeling this card, but the more I looked at it, the more I saw that there are a few different stages of growth represented. So I think that's pretty readable. Let's look up what she writes about the wheel. So 10, Wheel of Fortune, change destiny cycles. The unseen hand turns the wheel, weaving fortune and fate. So nothing particular to this artwork. It is lovely. I love this Justice card. Standing amongst some cattails or other aquatic plants. Some of his illustrations were from the story of Morgan Le Fay and Tristram. So some of these characters who are wearing armor might be from those stories or from those illustrations. Even though he was only active for like 7 years, he had several different stages of his art, so I think you can see how it certainly changes. And if I had to guess, again, I've just quickly glanced over some information about him, but I would guess this came from his later stage where it seemed like his art got a little more stark and harsh. He did pass away at 25 of tuberculosis. Temperance. So some of his art is more naturalistic. Oh, this is from an illustration of the Mask of the Red Death. She's wearing a belt decorated with faces and feathers. And this is the devil. So as I was saying, yeah, a lot of his art is certainly more flowery and curvy and typical of Art Nouveau, and some of it is not. Tower. A star. I love this moon so much. And you know, so like this is looking rather Art Deco to me. What do you think? If I saw just this picture without the border, I would have guessed Art Deco for this. So that's interesting. Sweet Sun. And I love this Judgment. She looks so compassionate. Beautiful line work. Really interesting world card. Rather disproportionate as her arm just kind of stretches out into the landscape. And it's kind of like, is this water and cliffs, or are these trees? Or I'm not sure, but you can see the Japanese woodcut influence on this one for sure. Ace of Coins. Maybe a pomegranate with some flowers in it. Two of Coins. 3 of coins. Loosely based on RWS tradition, but also pretty neutral. And I like decks that are based on art like this because the way I would read it is to start with my number and suit association as usual. And then just consider the art as a secondary influence. 5 of coins. Gorgeous 6 of coins. Seven. 8 of coins. It's pretty cool. Now there was a controversy in 1966, long after Beardsley's death, when his art was being shown at the Victorian and Albert Museum, and it was raided by police because in 1966 there were decency laws that apparently were being violated by Aubrey Beardsley's work. And that reminds me of this play I saw. Some friends of mine at a local theater put it on a few years ago. It's called No Sex Please, I'm British, or No Sex Please, I'm English, one of the two. It's super funny. And it took place during those decency laws. I was just randomly reminded of that. So if you have a chance to catch that play, I recommend it. Queen of coins. The King of Coins. This is from an illustration of 1001 Nights. So he certainly was into illustrating spicier subject matter. Oh, I'm gonna guess this is another one from his Morgan Le Fay King Arthur type illustrations. The Lady in the Lake for the Ace of Swords. 2 of Swords, and this is another example of his more bold and simplistic artwork. Three of Swords. 4 of Swords. This is kind of looking like Tristram again. There was an illustration I saw, which I don't think is in this deck, of Morgan Le Fay handing a shield to Tristram. The 5 of Swords. No idea who this is supposed to depict. He's quite a character. Six of Swords. I love how there's a little heart decoration on this sword. Seven of Swords. Eight. Nine of Swords. I wonder if, so the Devil card was from an illustration of The Mask of the Red Death, and she had a few figures standing on either side of her, and I wonder if this may have been one of them. I only glanced at the image, so I'm not sure, but it definitely fits the style. This is a really interesting card, 10 of Swords. And I suppose the skeleton is supposed to be buried beneath the earth? With somebody traveling above ground? Her face is very small. Really evocative image. Page of Swords. The Knight of Swords. It's maybe a child on a Pegasus. Looks pretty fun. Lovely Queen of Swords. I love this King of Swords. Look at that feather. The pants and shoes, just so over the top. Oversized coat. A lot of the kings are kind of caricatures in this deck. Ace of Wands. The 2. 3 of Wands. The 3 trees is a nice detail for this one. I love this 4 of Wands. It's so pretty. Definitely more classic Art Nouveau. 5 of Wands. Enjoy how he portrays hair. Really lovely 6 of Wands. Seven of Wands. I was kind of wondering what this was the first time I looked through this deck. But since then I saw that picture of Morgan Le Fay presenting Tristram with a shield, and this looks an awful lot like that. Except I kind of remember Tristram having longer blonde hair, like shoulder-length hair. But the shield I think was this shape, so I'm pretty sure that's what's happening here, is it's Tristram with his shield from Morgan Le Fay. Maybe he had his helmet off in the other illustration, but just has it back on for this one. 8 of Wands. It's pretty cool with an hourglass. I feel like everybody's wearing comfy jammies. Knight of Wands. Quite a character. Wow. Ten of Wands. He's carrying books. You need a library cart, my friend. Page. More comfy jammies. I really love the clothing style of this period. Looks very comfy. The Knight of Wands. She appears to be an archer. Very fashionable one. Super pretty. Queen of Wands. With more interesting hair. This is not how I would normally think of a King of Wands, but I do love him. I think he's awesome. Ace of Cups. The 2. Love this 3 of Cups. I'm gonna guess this is some of his earlier work, really influenced by the Japanese woodblocks. The ukiyo-e style. 4 of Cups. Love this 5 of Cups. Look at her skirt. And a 6. Seven of Cups, kind of a Thumbelina type image. Eight of Cups. Very interesting. Love this 9 of Cups. Excellent shoes. And the 10. Page of Cups. An especially gorgeous background. Some roses. The Knight. I really like how he depicts horses. Queen. And finally the King of Cups. Kind of reminds me of the Goblin King from the Labyrinth. Oh, this is lovely. I'm glad I got this. And it's similar to her other decks. Standard tarot size. Nice and shuffleable. They're kind of matte, so they're not super glidey. All right, let's choose a card to select one to read from her book. Two of Wands. Vision, planning, potential. A wider horizon beckons. The world awaits your design. And let's read one of the majors. Here's the Hermit. Solitude, insight, reflection, illumination found in silence, wisdom revealed in stillness. So it's a nicely written, pretty simple guidebook with a good history. And it comes with an absolutely lovely box, which I really enjoy. I'm glad I talked myself into this. I almost talked myself out of it, but I think this is worth getting for sure. It's really pretty, and I learned about an artist that was not on my radar at all. Do you have any of Lalania Simone's decks, or this one? I happen to have all of them. I am a big fan of hers. She's quite the artist. Thanks a lot for being here with me. I will talk to you next time. Bye.